The latest signals from the Kremlin are not just demands regarding Ukraine. The Russian authorities are essentially issuing an ultimatum to the entire Western alliance, including NATO, and are demanding a restructuring of the European security architecture according to their own preferences. Analysts call this an attempt to undermine NATO as a counterbalance to Moscow and to push for a revision of the entire system of guarantees in Europe.
And now, more details in our report. You are watching the Glavred channel. Hello everyone, I'm your host for today, Evgeny Serov. Please like and subscribe to the channel.
The Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has long been putting forward extreme conditions under which Moscow would be willing to discuss ending the ongoing conflict. However, according to experts from the American Institute for the Study of War, Putin has never been interested in a peaceful settlement focused solely on Ukraine. His demands go beyond the territory of the country and concern the very principles of how NATO operates as a whole. In interviews and public statements, the Kremlin has repeatedly claimed that, in its view, the roots of the conflict in Ukraine lie in the disregard for Russia's interests and the expansion of NATO towards Russia's borders. Despite the supposedly solemn commitment not to do so, Putin repeatedly raises this specific historical argument, using it as the primary basis for his ultimatum to the West. As many political analysts have noted, such statements mean that Moscow is demanding not just an agreement to end the war, but a fundamental and radical transformation to the architecture of European security, at the Kremlin's own unilateral discretion, including NATO's renunciation of eastward expansion and the binding legal formalization of this decision. Such conditions would deeply call into question the future not only of Ukraine, but also of other sovereign countries that might seek NATO membership. According to reports from Reuters and multiple other international news sources, Russia is in fact insisting on several key points that many Western countries consider to be unacceptable. First, this includes Ukraine abandoning its long-standing plans to join NATO, obtaining formal and legally binding guarantees from the alliance itself to halt further eastward expansion, restricting the presence of Western troops on Ukrainian territory even in peacetime, significantly weakening the overall defense capabilities of Ukraine, and other major concessions. If such extensive demands were to be met, it would mean a fundamental shift in the structure of unified European security, because NATO's pivotal role and its ability to protect its members would be gravely undermined. Essentially, the Kremlin is trying to use the war in Ukraine as strategic leverage to restructure the entire architecture of Western collective security in its favor. Experts warn that meeting such ultimatum-like demands from Russia would call into question the very existence of the system of defense guarantees in Europe. NATO is currently unequivocally rejecting demands to halt its expansion and is not planning to discuss such proposals, emphasizing that the security of member states cannot be a matter of bargaining. Furthermore, in addition to geopolitical ultimatums regarding NATO, the Kremlin is also actively advancing expanded territorial claims within Ukraine itself, including claims to territories that extend well beyond the specific regions it directly controls, and persistent attempts to legitimize its occupation through coercive and unequal negotiations. Thus, Putin's current diplomatic signals are not just an updated peace plan. They represent a fundamental and structural challenge to the entire system of European security and transatlantic solidarity. If the Kremlin only accepts a peace that includes a revision of NATO's rules and Ukraine's renunciation of its sovereign right to determine its own foreign policy, this essentially amounts to a calculated attempt to fundamentally reshape the international order in Moscow's strategic favor. In response, Western leaders in recent months have made it increasingly clear that they are not prepared to compromise on the fundamental security principles that are key to NATO, and remain united in the belief that achieving peace in Ukraine cannot come at the expense of dismantling the defense guarantees of the Allies. The situation remains tense, and Moscow's further actions will determine not only the course of the war in Ukraine, but also the future of the entire system of international security in the European Union.